Hello, my name is Miguel Reza, and today I will be talking about The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, an adventure fiction book. If you start out by promising what you don't even have yet, you'll lose your desire to work towards getting it, by Melchizedek. This quote plays a very big role in our lives. I feel as if it's a very unique approach of offering something that we don't even have yet, which is the main reason why I chose the quote, because myself, I've never thought of offering something that I'll get in the future for something in the present. I've never thought of it in the way that this quote speaks about it. So, about the book. So, the author, Paulo Coelho, he actually wrote about 13 books, all within the same series, and The Alchemist is one of them. The book series took about 21 years to be completed. And in an interview with Hannah Poole, Paulo Coelho actually stated that the book had only taken him 2 weeks to write. He stated as if the book had been like written in his soul, which is why it took him such a small amount of time. And even then, the, having The Alchemist just taken 2 weeks to write, it still became his most famous book up to date. So to start this off, the first character I will be talking about is the protagonist, Santiago. Santiago was a boy who grew up in Andalusia, Spain. He grew up being in his father's vision. His father wanted him to become a priest. However, as the story opened, we soon figured out that Santiago had other plans in mind and he actually wanted to travel the world. And this dream of his is what inspired him to become a shepherd. And Santiago, he wasn't alone throughout the book. He had a lot of people, of mentors to help him out and guide him through his journey. And towards the end, he actually experienced an extreme amount of change to his wisdom as he endured many conflicts and adventures with the people that I will be speaking about. Another character is Melchizedek. Melchizedek, apart from Santiago, was the first major character to appear. He was the one who sparked a fire in Santiago's journey. In my opinion, without Melchizedek, there wouldn't be any alchemist, because Melchizedek, his his personal legend, which is what a person must achieve throughout their lifetime, like their destiny, his personal legend was to come out to Santiago and help him find his personal legend. He's also one of the very few beings in the book that have mystical powers. We see this at the beginning when Melchizedek seems to know everything there is about Santiago, his past, his present, and future, including things that Santiago never told to anybody. Now, the one of the most important characters in the book, arguably more important than Melchizedek, is the alchemist. While Melchizedek enabled Santiago's journey to begin in the first place, without the alchemist, the journey would not have been able to been finished. He is the second magical character. He displays immense amounts of magical power throughout the book. He's able to turn lead to gold, and he's able to stay young or not grow old with something called the elixir of life. He would typically aid Santiago in times of crisis, whether that most of the time it would be uh, man versus man conflicts, but as well as man versus nature conflicts. Now, the setting of the book took place in two important locations. It was the two most discussed locations within the book. The first one was in a church, a broken down church where Santiago had spent the night in the beginning of the book. It was in Andalusia, Spain. However, as the story kept going and developed, he eventually found himself at an oasis filled with people in Egypt. Now, we don't know exactly what year the story is set place. There's no specific date for it. However, in one of the early pages, Santiago mentions something, a little flashback about how the Moors had already conquered Spain. So we know it's sometime after the 15th century because that's when the Moors' uh, quest over Spain had ended. Now, the conflict. There is a lot of conflict in this book. I have here Members itself, however, it's really a lot of conflict. The Members itself is Santiago. He needs to learn how to speak to his heart, how to speak the universal language as stated in the book in order to find his hidden treasure. But along the way, he also faces other troubles such as nature, man, and society. However, the main conflict is man versus self because it's what the story focuses on. It's a story about Santiago finding his personal legends through being able to listen to his heart. Now, the rising action was when one of the characters I mentioned earlier, Melchizedek, approached Santiago. This was when Santiago first learned about his personal legend. In this case, his personal legend was hidden treasure at the pyramids of Egypt. That's how he ended up from a church in Spain to an oasis in Egypt. Uh, at this time, Santiago had also, since he was a shepherd, he was traveling with his sheep. But in order to be able to pursue his hidden treasure, he needed to give up some of his sheep. So, in order to do that, he gave up all his sheep, he got money, and then he set out on his journey. Now, the climax. For me, the climax was all the pages where Santiago and the alchemist were together. It took a lot of courage for Santiago to get through this specific part of the book because this is where he faced the most conflict, man versus nature, man versus man. For the falling action was it was towards the end of the book where Santiago had finally began to understand the language of the world, the language of his heart. He started to understand his heart. This was also at the time when the alchemist had finished his journey with Santiago, and it was time for Santiago to head to the pyramids of Egypt on his own. I didn't include the resolution because the resolution is probably going to be shocking for newcomers. Therefore, the theme of the book is that I chose sometimes what you're looking for can be right in front of you. If whenever you, the book is read, this specific theme needs to be kept behind your mind in order to truly understand why this was chosen. And that's it. That was The Alchemist. That was my book talk about The Alchemist. The final quote I chose was no matter what he does, every person on earth plays a central role in the history of the world. And normally he doesn't know it. The Alchemist said this to influence Santiago to let him know that he's not alone in this world, that every single person out there has a role in this timeline, in this universe, in the galaxy. I'm Miguel Reza, and that was my book talk about The Alchemist.